Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling, your ultimate destination for all things AEW and WWE. Whether you're a hardcore wrestling fanatic or just a casual viewer, we've got you covered with the latest news, in-depth show reviews, and our unfiltered opinions on everything happening in the world of professional wrestling. Join us as we dive into the high-octane action, dramatic storylines, and backstage buzz of AEW and WWE. Get ready to step into the ring with us and stay on top of the wrestling world. This is Top Tier Wrestling. Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling. I'm your host, Josh, the Maverick of Mayhem, and joining me, as always, is my incredible co-host, the Sorceress of Submissions. I know I'll tap out, Dawn. Tonight, we're covering AEW's Dynamite from November 28th. Let's get into it.
Good lord.
This episode of Dynamite, I want to say was a banger, except there was one giant black hole, and we'll get to that. However, starting us off, after a strong performance at Full Gear, we have the Hurt Syndicate make their way out. And all three of them come out. We've got Bobby Lashley, MVP, and Shelton Benjamin. Shelton Benjamin's the only one dressed to wrestle because he is coming out for his Continental Classic Blue League match, which is coming up. But before we get there, MVP has a few things he'd like to say. He goes on to talk about how Lashley absolutely crushed Swerve Strickland, and he did.
He did.
And he goes on to explain that, you know, in case he wasn't clear before, when MVP hands a business card to you, it's a golden ticket. And you know, it's life-changing either way. It's either a life-changing opportunity to join the most powerful faction, or it'll be life-changing when they hurt you, because that's what they do. And he then further goes on to say that their business is getting championships for more money and more power. And that they are the merchants of misery. This is their stock in trade. And tonight, Shelton Benjamin will kick off the run for the gold, and they hurt people. They wanted to make sure you're really aware of that.
Yes, and the audience really likes that we hurt people.
They do, and
I can't blame them.
The Hurt Syndicate's looking good here. Of course, then MVP and Lashley have to leave because due to the tournament's rules, no one can be at ringside. It's just the two opponents. And
I wish they were as hardcore about that with other matches.
Right.
With other match types. That would make them a little bit more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just feel like they rely too heavily sometimes on factions or teammates or partners or, you know.
Yeah. But then again, that's pro wrestling, isn't it? I mean, True. It's at least cool that the Continental Classic kind of keeps it that way, right? Yeah. It's a one-on-one contest. And
they keep it classy.
They do keep it classy. Mm-hmm. And as MVP and Lashley are leaving, out comes Mark Briscoe, who is Shelton Benjamin's opponent. And there's a bit of a stare down as he's passing Bobby Lashley, but it doesn't come of anything. And then they get into it, and that brings us to our first match of the night. And I enjoyed this match a lot. I was curious to see how the two different, like the eclectic style of Mark Briscoe would pair off against Shelton Benjamin's like more classical, like power wrestling kind of style. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty darn good. I have to say though, for a large chunk of this match, Shelton Benjamin was just throwing Mark Briscoe around. Yeah. And I know that shouldn't surprise anyone, but Mark Briscoe doesn't usually take this kind of a like just hard ass beating. That's not to say Briscoe didn't have his time in the sun. He was able to, you know, hit some of the redneck kung fu, and he even had a really nice froggy bow off of the top rope, and then like another one on the outside of the ring at ringside. But ultimately, Um, ultimately, Shelton Benjamin just beat the life out of him. I mean, legitimately.
Yeah.
Near the end of the match, he hit some gigantic German suplexes on Briscoe. I mean, just mega huge ones. Like he yeeted Briscoe, and Briscoe landed high on his shoulders and neck. Like these looked oogly. And then I want to say he tried to break away and do an enziguri, and then try to hit Jay Driller, but Benjamin countered out of it with kind of an enziguri of his own, and then that leaves Mark Briscoe in the corner. Is kind of where he kind of moved off to after getting hit, and you get the step up knee in the corner and a big giant thrust kick like that completely flipped him, and then after that, Shelton goes for an initial pin, but Briscoe manages to kick out, so he backs up and he hits Benjamin hits Briscoe with another one of those massive thrust kicks that turns him inside out, and then picks him up to hit the exploder bomb for a straightforward finish. Like Shelton Benjamin just whooped poor Mark's ass in this match.
He did. And I mean, there's really not much for me to say here, but yeah, like you said, he did indeed um take Mark Briscoe to task. And I think that it's impressive to note, because Mark Briscoe, we've seen Shelton Benjamin yeet guys around, but they're usually smaller men. Mark Briscoe is not so small. So this was a pretty impressive match.
Yeah,
And again, Shelton just keeps looking more and more ridiculous. I don't know what ambrosia potion he found. I don't know what fountain of youth he fell into, but God bless him. Like he's just a delight to see. And I
yeah,
really like that I'm getting the chance to see more of him here in AEW, not knocking WWE. I'm not even trying to make it about that. I'm just saying that I didn't get to see him as much in WWE. I'm feeling really good
yep,
about being able to see him here in AEW, and he is shining here, and it's phenomenal. I mean, the dude looks good. Like, yeah, he
really
does not
good.
he does not look his age.
No,
Not
no. What is he like? 48,
49. He's 49.
48 or 49, and he looks like he might be like 30.
Yeah.
Insane. Uh, hopefully won't get in trouble, but the whole black don't crack thing really applies to like Shelton Benjamin and to Bobby Lashley. Like it's a little less so for MVP. I feel like he's wearing his age a little more in the face,
Mhm.
but I mean, I'm sure if he were to take off his top, he's got the gun show still. I think I
Yeah.
saw him
Yeah. Yeah.
recently in a GCW match, and he was still looking like bulked out.
Yeah.
So he's just not as insanely bulked out as Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. Um, that said, I agree with you. It feels like it's a slight modification, but return to form for Shelton Benjamin, because when he
Mhm.
and Charlie Haas first entered the WWE like 80,000 years ago, it seems now, they were proteges to Kurt Angle, kind of like how you see Chad Gable now.
Right.
Um, and in a lot of respects, I feel like he's doing some of that, but it's like he mixed in like some Brock Lesnar, because those German suplexes he hit Mark Briscoe with, I was like, man, if you did like 14 more of those in this match, this would be a Brock Lesnar match. Um, so he's looking strong. He's looking ridiculously strong.
Yeah.
So I have to say I'm pretty pleased with how MVP and the Hurt Syndicate and all of them are looking. They're looking as strong as they could. In fact, I mean, you could argue maybe they've been overbooked, because like
They
I don't know how. I mean, I guess they can, because Brock Lesnar did the same thing to John Cena and just squashed him, and he was their top guy at the time.
Yeah.
But the squashing of Swerve Strickland has me a little concerned. Like he's going to need to come back and get some comeuppance, because I mean he just got straight up whooped by Bobby Lashley.
He did. He did. Um, you know, and I was thinking about that, but they look so good. The Hurt Syndicate looks so good and so strong. as a faction that I could see and would not be bothered by Swerve and Prince Nana joining that faction. Like that's how strong and dominant they are. Because I'm like, I don't know what else you're
Yeah.
gonna do, buddy. Like, and that would take nothing for me. That takes nothing away from Swerve. I'm honestly thinking you're a powerhouse. You need a powerhouse faction on your side. You used to have one. They left you. Here you go. You guys pack up shop. There you go. If you're gonna take over later on, do so, but don't let them know. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Sort of
that's
like
what
an
I would do.
inside, like double agent kind of thing, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm in two minds about that because I see where you're coming from, and I don't disagree, but I'm worried about Swerve getting overshadowed. Like he rose meteorically over this past year,
Mhm.
and me
I don't
personally, I
know.
think Swerve is better to keep standing on his own because it took him a long time to get to that spot, and he was always in the shadow of somebody. Like he was a tag team partner with Keith Lee,
Hmm.
and then he did have his own faction, and he broke away from it, presumably because it was about Swerve and Swerve alone. But
Hmm.
I'm not sure if I think that would be the best call for him.
It's not. It's not the best call for him. But I'm saying it. I'm saying hypothetically, if in some weird bizarro world, Swerve was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna join up with the Hurt Syndicate," I would not think any less of him. I'd be like, "Yeah, no, true, true, good,
No,
good
and
facts, good facts, good man."
that would definitely be an incredibly powerful syndicate in
Yeah.
AEW. Like, I'm
Hmm.
sorry, faction in AEW. That would be undeniably true.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't get the sense that Swerve wants to share power and that
I
he's
don't
trying
think
to get
so.
back to that championship ASAP. A lot of guys are apparently. So, but we'll
Yeah.
we'll see that coming up. Um, Anyway, fantastic opening match and a good strong start to the Continental Classic Blue League with Shelton Benjamin earning 3 points. So fantastic. And then we see Tony Schiavone up at the entrance ramp, and he welcomes the CEO Mercedes Monet and
Yeah.
Camille to the stage. And I'm gonna put dogging Mercedes on pause because she did really good at Full Gear, so she's earned this much from me at
Nope.
this point.
Blech. No, I'm kidding.
Um, because all I've wanted was for her to show me something, and she did at Full Gear. I really hope we continue to see performances that maybe only go up from there would be ideal, especially from the woman that's making the most money in all of pro wrestling right now. Like we need to see her earn that. Um, and then Tony says that Mercedes' match with Statlander was the longest women's match in AEW history. I could believe that. Um,
Sorry, that's not funny, but I mean,
I mean, the first half of it was
uh,
like 97. Like, it was like, here is every version of a Meteora that we know. And then it was the latter part of it that got really good. Um, and then he said, many are calling it match of the year. And I'm like, who?
who?
Who? To quote Kofi Kingston, who?
Who?
Who? Because I wouldn't. I've seen matches that beat that from like Willow and Chris Stat when they did their street fight match, the one where Chris Statlander did like a splits into tacks, and I don't know. I'll just say I think I've seen better matches. I haven't seen a better match from Mercedes Monet, but I have seen better women's matches in AEW.
Yeah.
That said, Mercedes then takes the mic from Shivani and says she's the greatest TBS champion of all time. And I'm like, you're like the third TBS champion, and you're not even the longest reigning.
I
Jade Cargill just left.
I thought you were gonna stop giving her a hard time this this particular.
I'm not gonna dog her into the ground just for existing, but I will call out like what I don't think is true. Um,
Okay.
And I mean, she did good in one match. She's earning
Uh-huh.
some goodwill from me, but let's be realistic here.
Mhm.
And then she says, despite Statlander giving her the toughest match of her career, I could believe that. Although, I don't know. There were some bangers like back in the day in WWE. I feel like her and Charlotte Flair really had some killer matches too, and I want to say her and Bianca might have had some, but I'll let her give that praise to Statlander if she wishes. And then Mercedes says, she had to take it upon herself to show some people how to get the job done right. And it looks like she's on the verge of firing Camille, but then Camille takes the mic and tells her to shut the hell up. And I was so happy. I was so happy. I was like, Camille, you haven't done very many cool things, so this is probably the coolest thing you've ever done. And she asks Mercedes if she's stupid or dumb. And I'm like, I feel like you're splitting hairs. um, and she goes on to say, you can't fire me because I quit. And then I could not possibly do justice to the squeal that Mercedes issues forth. But she's so upset. And in this regard, I mean, I still say that the most draw that Mercedes has is to watch her either get beat up or frustrated and somehow thwarted, because this was the most happy. I mean, I was just grinning at this point. But she's so mad, and she's like, "What? Nobody quits on me."
Yeah.
And then I think she just stormed out after that. And that leads us into match 2.
Oh God.
I can't. This is the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Championship with Chris Jericho defending as the champion versus Tomohiro Ishii.
This
And
match was so bad that when you started to say the name of it, the title, I started to yawn. I couldn't stop myself. That's how.
Yeah.
That sums it up. No, please continue.
Maybe Japanese strong style. Maybe I just don't get it. Maybe it's not for me. But if Japanese strong style simply means that we hit each other in the chest and the face until we're actually bloody, and so we've done damage to one another, but it's still managed to be the most boring crap I've ever seen in my freaking life, then that is a summary of Japanese strong style. And I have to assume it has to do with that because both Tomohiro Ishii and Minoru Suzuki apparently practice Japanese strong style, which means I'm not going to sell anything and we're going to hit each other and maybe we'll do a wrestling move if you're lucky. I don't know, but like the first infinity minutes of this match was just Ishii and Jericho back chopping each other, and then I think like there was a DDT on the outside briefly, and then they got back in the ring and started slapping each other, like bitch slapping each other. And if that turns you on, like if you are like, this is the most hardcore shit I've ever seen because Chris Jericho's chest and Ishii's chest is starting to get a little warm, and then Ishii's face is looking like he was in one of those slap contests, then I guess this is a match for you. But this was the most boring abortion of a match that I mean, it's either this one or the one with Minoru Suzuki. And Chris Jericho was a common denominator in both, but the other common denominators are that the guys he was having this match with were like Japanese strong style guys. And maybe that's it, because we've been complaining over a few episodes now about how these Japanese guys are coming over and their whole shtick is to no-sell moves. And it's super boring. And if that's Japanese strong style, then it can stay in Japan as far as I'm concerned. Like, I'm just not here for it. It is fucking lame.
So boring, man.
It is so boring. And I can't put it on Jericho because I just watched Jericho have matches like when he won the Ring of Honor Championship, it was against Mark Briscoe, and those matches were great. So it's literally whenever he says he's going to set foot in with a Japanese strong style guy that I could just skip the match. And so here's my review of that match. Suck, 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 suck. Judas effect. Chris Jericho wins the end.
I don't know. If you like your superstars, your sports entertainers, if you will, if you like them to end the match looking like they just had a bout of really rough sex, then Then you just want to watch them slap each other for like 10 minutes. There you go.
Yeah, because that's what I feel like I watched. Just was slap, 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 slap. Fast forward. Oh, what's the finish? Judas effect. Cool. I couldn't, guys. I couldn't. This match was so
Uh,
bad. I just couldn't. It was the worst. And I mean, I'm sorry. I know there's fans out there of like Ishii and Suzuki, and maybe they do something cool every so once in a while, but clearly not when they get in the ring with Jericho. So that's it. This match, if I could give it a neck nub rating by itself, this match was like -5 neck nubs. This was this shit. If there's a lot of online hate for AEW,
mm-hmm.
and I don't typically cotton to it. I tend to want to try and defend it because the hate seems so unjustified. But if I was looking at AEW for the first time and this was the match I saw, I would hate AEW
Oh
as
my
well.
god, I
This
would never
match was
watch it
that
again,
bad.
bro. I would never watch it again. Like I would turn it on and then I would show it to you so that I'd be like, look at this bullshit, so that we could laugh at it and never watch it again.
Yeah, I mean this was like you wanted to just set television time on fire. This was such a waste.
It's
So
like
I'm
just
sorry. Like this match was so bad, it actually ultimately like reduced the score for this episode of Dynamite because it was that kind of a void black hole sucktastic match. So without beating this dead horse as long as Jericho and Ishii slapped one another, it was bad. The end. Moving on from that, Renee is in the back with
oh
Swerve
man.
Strickland and Prince Nana, and she asks how does Swerve rebuild after such a loss to Bobby Lashley. And Swerve says rebuilding is what they do. It's what he's good at, but he has to admit he's never been hit that hard before. And then Max Caster walks by, like behind them, and walks by, and I guess he was giggling or something. And then Swerve is like, "Hey, didn't he whistle at him or something?"
No, he said my man or something
My
like that.
man, yeah.
Yeah.
And so he gets Mac to turn around, and I think Swerve said, "Is there something funny?" And he says, "What do you say? Yeah, there is something funny, but hey, let's make some bars about it." And he reminds him that the Prudential Center, where I'm assuming I'm just I think that's where Lashley beat him. Max reminds Swerve that he pinned him at the Prudential Center in a tag team match last year, and he goes on to say, "Let's make a rap out of it. Let's drop some bars." And he says, "Hey, Swerve, you used to be like a house of fire or house fire." And that's when Swerve just grabs hold of him and starts whooping his ass. And I mean, he kicks the shit out of Platinum Max Caster.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, he beat him up. Like he threw him into a whole bunch of like storage boxes, and then he gave him the equivalent of like Randy Orton's punt to the side of his head. And well, I don't. Without knowing the extent of the injuries, I was thinking that Max Caster may very well be the very best wrestler no longer alive.
Well, I don't know about that. He would still just be no longer alive. A wrestler no longer alive.
Yeah, I think he got knocked down from platinum down into like copper or aluminum.
Coppercaster.
Because Swerve lit him up. He wasn't having it. But after that unceremonious beatdown, we are brought back to Tony Schiavone, who is in the ring. And he welcomes Hangman Page to the ring. I don't know why Tony keeps putting himself through this.
I don't know why he always wants to deal with crazy eyes, but here comes Manson Lamps, and the first thing that Shivani does after welcoming Hangman Page to the ring is to talk about his loss at Full Gear. And so Hangman gives him a look like, I will choke you out, Shivani. And Shivani's like, I'm just telling you the truth, my man. Please don't beat me. But then Paige said he kept up his end of the deal. But Christian was the one that failed there. So tonight, Paige will do what he should have done in the first place. And Paige said his intention is, and has always been, to be the world champion. It should have never been Swerve. Should have never been Brian. Should have never been Pox. Mox. It's Paige's.
The bastard Pox and John Paxley.
And then, just like clockwork, here comes Switchblade. Jay White reminds us how many times he's beaten Paige, because he didn't whip that ass a couple of times, y'all. A few.
No, he's so proud of that 5 that I'm waiting for him to do like King Booker and be the 5-time champion.
My God. I'm waiting for it too, yeah. So he's talking about how many times he's whipped that ass, and he says he deserves to be the champion, or he deserves the championship. White will gladly give him a taste tonight in Chicago. So he's basically, he was basically like, we can recap all of that. We can run it back all over again in Chicago, which of course the audience loses its shit. But before anything can happen between Jay White and Hangman, Pac attacks from out of nowhere. He attacked White, right?
Oh, and shit, Wheeler, not the Pac attack.
The Pac attack, the very same.
Yep.
Pac attacked Jay White. Mm-hmm. And Wheeler Yuta jumped Paige.
Yep. Yeah, Wheeler Yuta, I think, slid in while Paige was looking towards Hangman and hits him with like this massive, because Hangman is still not walking right from like that match he had with Jay White a couple times ago.
Yeah.
And so Wheeler jumps in and hits him with a huge chop block. So immediately gets the knee going.
Yeah. And then I don't remember. So after Pac attacked White, Wheeler Yuta jumps Paige, and then White tosses Pac and hit Yuta with a sleeper suplex. Please, you do this. I take that over.
I don't know if it was a sleeper suplex. I'm inclined to think that White is favoring the half and half, but maybe those are considered exactly one and the same.
Which is exactly why I was like, you take this over.
But like for a second there, it looks like White is dealt with Pac and Yuta, and I think when we were watching it, we're sitting there thinking, "Oh snap! Is this going to be like, one of those is this setting up like a tag match where Paige and White will be versus Pac and Yuta?" But it wasn't, because as soon as White deals with Pac and Yuta, who were kind of beating on Hangman in the corner, like they were kicking his leg over and over and over. Hangman pulls himself upright and runs out of the corner and lariats the life out of Jay White. But he didn't see Marina Shafir. And she comes in and just obliterates Hangman with the briefcase. Like, just knocks, like she was swinging for the fences. And, Hangman then rolls out of the ring. And she sets up to go after Jay White, who's recovering from that lariat. And as soon as he stands up, she runs at him to do the same thing, but White ducks under, and it looks like he's going to hit her with the Blade Runner. We're both sitting there going, do it. Because as we have pointed out, it's really lame that these women are beating on these men and the men can't do anything about it. And I'm like, well, maybe AEW, they're edgier, so, he can do a move to her. But before he can execute the Blade Runner, Jon Moxley, of course, runs in and throws a sleeper choke on Jay White. And while he's choking Jay White, Marina Shafir hits this huge roundhouse on Jay White, which buckles him to his knees. And then Shafir judo, hip throws White into the mat. and then picks him back up and puts him in a choke. And it was a very judo style choke from the front, but it wasn't like a guillotine choke. And either way, she puts White to sleep, and then like everybody stomps Jay White like into the into the mat. And I'm sitting here waiting for Juice or somebody to come out, and nobody did. They proceeded to stomp Jay White until they were tired of stomping Jay White, and then they just left.
Yeah, they did to him what they should have done to Orange Cassidy when they had him taped up.
Yeah, I guess unfortunately, right at the moment, the Bullet Club is out of ammo.
Yeah. So I think I see where they're going here. I think I'm starting to see something develop, and maybe they're trying to get away from one particular uh set of imagery, or one type of imagery with the Death Riders.
I
I think.
certainly hope so. I know which type of imagery you're talking about, and it's the fact
Yeah.
that they are quite
Because
clearly based on some white supremacist shit. Because like
yeah,
Moxley clearly like based his character off of some shit out of like Romper Stomper, and that's just not coming across looking good. I,
yeah,
I don't I don't think that is anything they need to lean into. So
yeah. So I think they might be trying to get it. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what takes place. In later episodes. But if I'm wrong, then we'll see then.
yeah.
Marina Shafir is still annoying as shit to me. I'm sorry. It's still annoying to me that she's just fucking do whatever she wants. And if she won't go and challenge any other particular female wrestler, then somebody needs to just fucking go and start whooping her ass. Because the guys can't touch them, right? So another chick can just go right in there and just start beating the hell out of Marina Shafir. Like somebody should. Let's go for it.
Well, Jay
Um,
White almost hitting the Blade Runner on her gave me a sparkle of hope because clearly Tony Khan and AEW like back in that like Attitude and WCW era, right?
mhm,
And back then was when you would have things like Randy Orton RKOing Stephanie McMahon. You know,
mhm.
and that made sense. It's like, I agree with this whole idea of like, you don't hit a lady, but a chick who gets in the ring and trying to hit you is fair game.
Yeah,
And so it made me happy that he was going to at least attempt to Blade Runner her. So I'm hoping that that is a thing. I mean, even back when it was Bryan Danielson and she tried to interfere in his match against Moxley, Bryan, like the minute she jumped on him, he shoulder threw her to the ground.
yeah, he did. I miss you, Brian. I said it. I said it.
I mean, people might think that that sounds unchivalrous, but one, it's pro wrestling, guys. It's all scripted. And
Yeah.
two, uh, equality, yo. If she can get in that
Equality,
ring
yo.
to swing, she can get in that ring to be swung on. But as the rest of the Death Riders leave, Claudio Castagnoli makes his way towards the ring because he's up in the next match, this time in the Continental Classic Gold League. And it is him versus Ricochet. And I'll let you. What were your thoughts going into this match?
Uh, okay. I I I was hoping that the outcome would be different. And coming into the match, I actually thought the person who didn't win would win. Um, and I guess I understand. So you know what? I'll start this way. Um, I think they looked good together. I think Claudio and Ricochet look real good together.
Agree.
Um, I think uh, Claudio, since being in the Death Riders, here's my compliment of the Death Riders today. Since being in that particular or joining that faction, has looked dominant and terrifying in the ring. Um, he's been brutal. He looks like he could join up with House of Black right now.
Yeah.
Um, like he's been looking real good in the ring since joining up. Ricochet has been a delight to see, of course. Um, and I thought again, this is another one where we got like a high flyer versus somebody who's more like a power wrestler. Um, but this worked out, and I mean Claudio did some yeeting of Ricochet that that I was like, I hope he's got some sort of like inside body floater devices or something. Something to help him land a bit more gentle, because that's gonna hurt. Nope, he doesn't. Never mind. Like he got yeeted a lot in this match. Um, I don't think though that Ricochet got I don't think he got canned or nothing. I don't think he got like,
Mm-mm.
I think he gave as good as he got. And he did a lot of his high flying business. Of course, he did his taunt where he like, jumps from one side of the ring or bounces off the ropes and does his little flip and lands like his little superhero pose. He did that
Mm-hmm.
early
Mm-hmm.
on. He did that early on while Claudio stood outside of the ring with his hands on his hips, not even looking. He was very, very like, man, fuck this guy right now. Oh, but all in all, I thought it was a really good match. Um, Claudio ended up winning the match, and
Indeed.
that's the part that I was a tad bit surprised about. Um, I'm not trying to get on the bandwagon of people who are shitting on Ricochet going to AEW versus staying with WWE and blah blah blah. I'm not about to get on that bandwagon, and I'm not about to say that AEW is doing to Ricochet what WWE did to Ricochet. But it is a little daunting to see him already down 2 matches
Back to back.
back to back. That's a
And
little
well,
concerning.
maybe that has something to do with it because they did mention, like, Ricochet hasn't had a lot of time to recover from the huge match that he had with Takeshita.
Hmm.
And we did see like a couple of times when Ricochet was going for his outside dives, like he didn't seem like he was going as fast as usual. So I do think that's kayfabe, and I do think he was selling this idea that he's still a bit beat up, and
Yeah.
he's having to go against Claudio, who is no joke. Now, surprisingly, as I recapped some of the like high spots in this one, there weren't as many. Like you would think with someone like Claudio, you would just be seeing Ricochet getting bounced off of the mat like repeatedly. But like the few times Claudio attempted to do big moves like power bombs, Ricochet countered out of them. But
Yeah.
where Claudio did hit Ricochet really hard is some of the stuff outside of the ring was pretty nasty, including like dropping him crotch first on the guardrail. Jesus.
Yeah, that was
Um,
so wrong.
yeah. So just to hit some of the high spots from Ricochet, the biggest high spots were his outside dives. He hit a beautiful twisting plancha, and he also hit just a fantastic suicide dive. But like I said, like he didn't have the acceleration he usually does, which is something that the announce team pointed out. So I think the idea is that he hasn't recovered since his match at Full Gear yet.
Yeah.
That said, there were some huge hits from Claudio, like less in the realm of slams and more like he booted like Ricochet's face off at one point with a huge big boot. And he also there was a point where Ricochet did a middle rope, like he tried to springboard off the middle rope towards Claudio, and Claudio European uppercutted him inside out.
Yeah.
And then like the last major big hit, there was a point where near the end of the match, Claudio kind of runs through Ricochet and dumps him outside, where he throws him chest first into the guardrail, and then Atomic dropped him on the guardrail again. and Ricochet barely makes it back before the 10 count. And when he does, he just gets like brutally lariated by Claudio, and that's what scores the 1-2-3 for Claudio. And
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's a little disconcerting that Ricochet has had like an unbeaten record, like not pinned or submitted until Full Gear, and then now immediately following that he loses again.
Yeah. But I'm just hoping. I'm hoping that it's for a story. Like you said, I'm hoping that because I mean I don't think he's out of the tournament.
No, it's multiple elimination, not single elimination.
Right. So I'm just gonna hang tight and see what happens.
Yeah.
But so far this turn, the shift that's happening in AEW, I kind of like it. It's keeping my interest, and it's got me going. Oh shit! What the hell is happening here? And I'll get to that later because we still have a couple more matches before I can talk about the overall body of work.
And the upside of this particular setup of the Continental Classic is that since it's not single elimination, you can have some guys that could ultimately go on to win it, but they lose early and make up the points later. So it's really good for those kind of come from behind victories.
Yeah, this is true.
But following that match, which was very good, we have Renee in the back with Don Callis and Kyle Fletcher. And Kyle Fletcher was doing the most. Like, Don Callis was talking, and Kyle Fletcher kept gesturing through the whole thing. Like, he is riding on cloud 10. He's so happy that he beat Will Ospreay at Full Gear.
Yeah.
And so Callis goes on to say, you know, it was something like, people are surprised that we brutalized, you know, that we're being so brutal. And he's like, this is the wrestling business. That's what you do to get ahead. So, of course, we decimated Will Ospreay. And Fletcher goes on to say that he's already proven that he's better than Will Ospreay in every single way, but he's going to continue to do so by winning the Continental Classic. And then from there, we have Adam Cole and the Kingdom make their way to the ring. And Cole gets out there and he is cutting a promo against MJF. Basically swears on his mother that when he gets his hands on MJF, he'll beat him to within an inch of his pathetic life. And then he also says, especially because of what MJF did to Roderick Strong. And then enter Kyle O'Reilly. And this is where it gets weird for me. Like, I thought it was weird in the Dynamite leading up to Full Gear that Kyle O'Reilly inserted himself into this story. And it's weird here again because he comes out and he says, you know, that Cole fought Max and it didn't work. And I'm thinking, what are you referring back to? Because, like, the last time Cole fought Max, he betrayed him super badly. And, like, that's how we got to the whole confusing, like, Max comes back as, like, a face for 5 minutes, then goes away again and comes back and is a mega heel. And now Adam Cole is a face. So, in their efforts to try and make that make sense, they're now adding in Kyle O'Reilly, which makes even less sense. So, I don't know where this is trying to go, but it sure is weird. But he goes on to say, let's try something different. Let Kyle fight Max. And Cole says, but you just told me, you know, that I shouldn't have my friends fight my battles.
What is like...
And like Cole says this. He says, you just said, you know, and I'm thinking back to, like, for a little bit there, Adam Cole had come back and said, I got to do this alone. And then the next week, like, all of Undisputed Kingdom and Roderick Strong are like, you aren't alone. So, like, Adam Cole at no point was trying to send his friends to fight his battle. And in fact, you know, now you have Kyle here trying to say, well, let me do it. And it's like, all of your friends are actually just getting in the way of you fighting MJF. This is so freaking weird.
Yeah.
And he says, you know, after Cole says he doesn't want his friends to fight his battles, Kyle says he's not doing it for Cole, he's doing it for Roddy. And it's like, so it's better so it's only a problem if Adam Cole wants his friends to fight his battle. But if Roddy wants his friends to fight his battles, and I'm not convinced that he does, that's okay. So like nothing Kyle is doing here tracks logically. Like it is ridiculous at this point. But before we can all wonder at this particular golden gem of stupidity, MJF shows up on the Tron playing the piano and says that he is focused on the Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal next week and has no time for any match with either of you two losers. And then he proceeds to like fake play his own music on the piano. And then Cole picks up a mic and steps forward and says, "Well, then consider me the number one person to enter into that battle royal." And Kyle's like, "And I'm number two." And you and I were both like, "Okay, what?
But
What is
why though?
happening?"
I just don't get this. It's like if they have nothing for Kyle O'Reilly to do, my God, I don't know. I got some lawn work. I don't listen. This is like stupid. And it's getting more and more confusing. And it got even more confusing while he was literally up there talking about it. Kyle, I'm talking
Yeah.
about. And then him saying that he's not doing this for Cole, he's doing it for Roddy. I'm like, but when Cole says something about doing something for anybody else, this dude just freaks out on him. He literally, the last time they interacted with each other, Kyle came out and pushed him and told him to go catch who was it that he was going after?
MJF?
Yeah, go catch MJF or whatever so I'm not sure what we're doing. I'm not sure where he's going with this, and I'm not sure what the storyline is anymore. And this is getting super confusing, and all these dudes are literally just muddling, they're just mucking the storyline up. When it really is Adam versus MJF. I mean, that's really what this was originally, and now it's just so much. This is a clusterfuck. Also, I kind of feel like this is a huge like you guys are dumb. Like I'm looking at the dozen battle royale next week, uh, and now suddenly he just wants these two dudes to join up in this battle royale so they can just go through it and get their asses kicked. I don't even know if he's gonna be in it. I think it'd be hilarious if he doesn't.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not very good odds for Adam Cole or Kyle O'Reilly, right?
No.
Because it's a battle royal. But worse than that, you've got at this point, Max has got you guys going to have to fight each other because there's only one winner in a battle royal. So, is is Kyle O'Reilly going to throw Adam Cole out, and then Adam Cole's going to again not be able to have a match with MJF, but without going through another member of the kingdom, kinda, even though Kyle is part of the conglomeration.
That's the other thing. Well, don't you have your other business? Where's your man at? Where's your man at Orange Cassidy? Shouldn't you be avenging him? Like what are we doing right now?
Yeah, did you just forget that the Death Riders exist? Because wasn't that a thing that was supposed to be a rallying cry for all of the AEW to want to be against, and now you're like, nah, this is more important, I guess.
Yeah.
Even though Kyle O'Reilly was dead ass boring until he got into the conglomeration. Dude had zero personality, and now he's coming out and just being weird and confused. I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's not making what was already a confused storyline between Adam Cole and MJF any clearer, and it's just making it weirder and more convoluted.
So much worse. So much worse. So I don't get it.
Yeah. This ain't helping make it make sense.
Nah, bro.
So, I mean, my investment in it is kind of dissipated. At this point, I don't really care that much about MJF and Adam Cole at all.
No, I don't.
So, moving on from that. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think that there was a slight delay there for me, and it just kind of talked over you. I apologize for that. But I was agreeing with you. No, I don't. I don't care about these two. This little storyline that I had at all, and that's a really bad way for that. What I thought initially was a very fun, fun little storyline
Yeah.
That's a bad way for something like that to end.
Yeah, it
Um,
is really sad to see that this is where one of the biggest storylines of AEW like
yeah,
ended up. Um, so if this is where it's at, I guess it's where it's at, but it's not really it's not a major storyline that I as a fan am like, ooh, let's find out what happens here. If
yeah,
anything, I'm like ambivalent at this point because it's so
yeah,
convoluted and it makes no sense. And while Adam Cole and MJF had some heat, now you're throwing all these other people randomly into the mix that have zero heat for any reason.
yeah,
Um, and you've killed it. You've killed it for me. Unfortunately, that's kind of where that storyline sits for me now. It's just confused and weird, and it's unfortunate that the like super best friends into the betrayal thing ended up here.
yeah, yeah,
Because that was a really good storyline. But I mean, I kind of feel like it doesn't have the issue of being super confused, but also kind of wasted, right? Like it was like the big Tony Storm Mariah May thing was huge. Like that was one of the better women's storylines in all of pro wrestling.
yeah.
And then since then, Mariah May hasn't had much of a run and has been far less interesting.
No.
So it's like you guys made these massive, like super amazing storylines, and now they have petered off into garbage.
Yeah. Very quickly, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. But moving on, we come to match 4, which is Jamie Hayter versus Queen Aminata. And I believe it relates to some sort of tournament, but I am unclear on the details of it because I think it's a tournament that they said runs through like Japanese Joshi wrestling stuff. So I'm a little unclear for what it's for going in.
Yeah.
But I was excited by the participants, at least going in. It's Jamie Hayter and Queen Aminata, and I'm a fan of both of those women, and I've seen both of them go in the ring. But I'm gonna let you take over here because you had some opinions about this match, and I'd like you to state yours.
Okay. Well, I feel kind of weird. Kind of. Uh, I feel weird saying it, but um, because we had such different views. But for me, this was kind of lackluster. Um, Queen Amanada, I I like both. I like Jamie Hayter. I like Queen Amanada. Um, and I was hoping for a bit more of a match that was on equal footing. And I know that Queen Amanada is the younger talent here. She's a little wet behind the ears. I do understand that. But technically speaking, her offense maybe 3-4 moves in this entire match, and then she was back to being, I think, just yeeted around like woman handled. I think Jamie Hayter uh kind of dominated this match, and it's not that I don't. It's not that I have a problem with her dominating the match. It's just I was expecting a little more. This felt almost like this was teetering for me on being a squash match. I think that's the best way for me to sum it up. And I'm waiting for the opportunity. Uh, I'm waiting for the opportunity that Queen Amanada should get. I think she is deserving of. Uh, where she gets to show a little bit more strength in the ring, because I feel like when she goes against another AEW superstar, I feel like I feel like she what's the word I'm looking for? I think she dials it in, and not like she doesn't give it her all, but I don't think she puts as much power behind her moves. I don't think she goes as hard on the paint as I think Queen Amanada could. And I don't know why she wouldn't with someone like Jamie Hayter or somebody like Statlander, you know? So
Yeah.
I just kind of feel, long story short, I feel like this was a little too close to being a squash match for me, for somebody that I am hoping they are going to give a fair AEW superstar push to in the near future, because I think she should get it. Uh, just based on the matches, you know what? Not only her good matches, but her bad ones too, and how well she sells the moves of other superstars, how well she sells her own moves, how well she sells her bumps and her scrapes and falls and stuff like that. I think she does a great job of it. I mean, I've seen her do more of that than her actual offense, so I can say that I think she does a good job with that, which I think she has the potential to be one of those overall excellent superstars, the kind that you want, the kind
Yeah.
that you're going to depend on in the ring. I think she has that.
Yeah. I think I agree with you here. I think I'm tired. I mean, I'm happy to see Queen Amanada, but I'm tired of seeing her lose
Yeah.
because we've been watching her for a while now, and she also has been doing great things, on Ring of Honor, where she's kind of a top card star over there, and she shows up on AEW quite regularly, but she always ends up losing. And to women, I'm not saying Hater is one of those women, but she has lost to several women that I don't think she should have lost to. Like, she never should ever in her life ever lose a match to freaking Serena Deeb.
No.
Ever.
No.
I mean, Aminata is maybe not as jacked, but she's not far from Jade Cargill. And so for her to be jobbing these other women just doesn't make any sense to my mind.
Yeah.
She absolutely is a woman that I think could very easily be a top spot player. And since I think the other thing that hurts is that there's so many women that are in top spots that I think suck. Like I admit that Mercedes gave us a good match with Statlander, but that was the first sign of not completely being a waste of money that I've seen out of her since she's been in AEW.
Yeah.
And then you've got, like, again, Serena Deeb, completely lame. And you've got Britt Baker, who I absolutely just don't. I think she's the worst. And so when I do see women that I think are very talented, like Willow Nightingale and Queen Aminata, that are like jobbing when you've got these completely lame ass wrestling women that are sitting at the top of the card, it pisses me off.
Yeah.
But in this particular match, I don't think she was fully squashed. And the way I feel like they tried to depict that was not so much that Aminata was hitting so much of her own offense, but like at least twice she thwarted Hater going for the Haterade, which is 2 more times than most chicks that are in the ring with Hater since she's come back.
That is true.
And it wasn't until that third Haterade that Jamie Hater finished off Queen Aminata. Now, I do think there were a couple of spots that could have been less sloppy. One of them in particular was when Jamie Hayter went for the backbreaker. She put Aminata. Aminata's a tall, lanky woman, and I think that might have had something to do with it. But Jamie Hayter put her so high on her knee that it just looked like it collapsed her own knee instead of actually doing much to Aminata. It was not a good-looking backbreaker. She needs to go ask Roddy for some tips, since he's the messiah of the backbreaker. But yeah, other than that, it was as a match. I'm pleased to see Jamie Hayter. I'm pleased to see Queen Aminata. I want both of them to win. One of them didn't, and it wasn't that fantastic of a match. It was mostly a Jamie Hayter, is going to beat you up. She just didn't beat you up as bad because they eventually, hopefully, want to push Queen Aminata and not bury her.
Yeah.
But it was so-so. That's all I can give it. Like, it wasn't anything to write home about. And that's unfortunate because these are two women that I think could give you a match that you that could be an absolute banger, but they just didn't choose to produce it that way.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the match, the lights go out, and I was like, "Oh, that's right."
Yep.
Julia Hart has been kind of like, at least with her promos, targeting Jamie Hayter, and so I was like, "Ooh, what's gonna happen?" And then the lights come back on, and there's a spotlight on the stage, and that was it. And it's like, oh. And Hayter's sitting there going, "I know it's you, Julia. Where you at?" And I was sitting there thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
So, I guess if I had to summarize why this didn't land with me that well, is that Jamie Hayter and Queen Aminata has a ton of potential, I think, and it was unrealized. And then this promo with Julia Hart versus Jamie Hayter, and again, a ton of potential, and it wasn't realized. So I just feel like they're teasing at the good things that we could get when we don't deserve cookies on Dynamite. So I felt a little like deflated and kind of disappointed with how that ended up playing out, considering the participants involved.
Yeah. I tend to agree.
And after that, we are taken to the back where Rennie Packets is with Mina Shirakawa. And Mina cuts a relatively like sizable promo in English, despite her having a tremendously thick Japanese accent. And she says, "We're finally seeing the real Mariah May." And she says she knew that this would eventually, be the case because she knows Mariah May. And she just can't stand anyone getting close. And she says, but since we're seeing the real Mariah May, let me introduce her to the real Mina. And after that, Mariah May runs in from the back because Renee and Mina Shirakawa are sitting on like bar stools with microphones in front of them. And Mariah May runs in and just smashes Mina in the back of the head with a champagne bottle. And Mina just like flatlines into the ground. And Mariah May, what did she do? She knelt over. I think she kicked her once or twice, and then knelt over.
She hit her with the belt. She hit her across the back with the belt several times.
Yeah. And you hear Renee in the back going, "Mariah, stop!" And I'm like, "Why aren't you getting security, Renee? That's useful." And Mariah says, "I want Mina," and then she stands up and looks like she's about to like attack the cameraman, but then they just sort of cut. And this was actually a really good promo, honestly. These two look like they're gonna go for a hardcore death match or something. Like, well, then show me something. I'm here to see something.
Please show me something. Please.
Yeah. But so far, like, Mina and Mariah have done like some crazy stuff already just with promos. So take that to the ring where it counts and show me something. I'm here for it,
Yeah.
And apparently they're going to attempt to show us something in 2 weeks at AEW Dynamite. Winter is coming.
Yep. Just like Mina. She came and now so is Winter.
Oh yeah, there you go. Winter and Mina have something in common. And that leads us into the final match of the night, which is the Continental Classic Gold League match between Darby Allin and Brody King.
Because Darby wants to die.
Because Darby really, like, every time he comes to the ring, I think he's trying to kill himself.
Here's what I want to say about this match.
Go for it.
And then you can take the reins and give us the play-by-play. But here's what I want to say about this match. Darby Allin needs a hug. He needs a hug. He needs a cookie, some warm milk, and a nap in a very comfortable bed. He should call his mother, see how she's doing. I think she was in the ring. I'm sorry, not in the ring. I think she was in the audience. tonight.
Oh yeah.
That's the other thing I want to say. There was a lady in the audience who caught my attention because she sounded so sweet and supportive to
And
Darby
concerned.
Allin, and so concerned about him that I was like, "Is this her first time at a like?" She knows this is kayfabe, right? Is she okay? Like, I'm surprised Darby didn't pull a Moxley and check on her and kiss her on the forehead. Um, if you know, you know. Um, but yeah, that's all I want to say about this match. Please go ahead and give us the play-by-play. Darby's insane. He needs a hug. Call your mother, Darby.
Yeah. Darby also is usually kind of beat up in every match he's in, but in this particular match, because if you're familiar with
Gosh.
the events of Full Gear, he apparently like wrecked himself by getting into a car accident with a car that was empty. Um, so he's bandaged around the ribs, he's bandaged around one of his legs, and I think he's got like a little bandage on his forehead. So he's fully beat up, and the minute he gets into the ring, like immediately, Brody King is like, "What the hell? You know, can you even compete?" You know, and then he turns to the ref and he's like, "What is this?" Because at this point, Brody King is like, "I don't want to be the guy that beats up a crippled person." But Darby insists that he can go, and by insists, I mean he provokes
Oh
Brody until Brody
God.
decides he's going to fight him. And Brody pretty much just like annihilates him initially, like throws him across the ring and then hits him with a pair of huge sentons for a 2 count. And the whole time, Darby looks like he's about to vomit up all of his ribs.
Oh God.
And then he like just continues to physically dominate Darby all over the place. Some of the highlights, like he hits a black hole slam, aka Big Boss Man slam, that looked like it put Darby in the basement. And of course, Darby kicks out because Darby is trying to make his matches in AEW look like a snuff film. Um, and there were several times that Darby would either get out of the ring or roll out of the ring or get thrown out of the ring. So they're outside, and there's a point where Big Brody King tries to go for a back chop, and he slams his hand into the ring post. And for a second there, it looks like Darby is going to get something going. He jumps on the back of Brody King, but Brody King slams him into the guardrail. And then he proceeds to turn around and try and do a cannonball into the guardrail, and he hits the guardrail so hard that like one of the cameras stopped working and audio feed cut out for like the next 5 or so minutes of the match. They got another camera up. It was just the one that was right there in that corner, but um, I don't know if they intended to do that, like if that was a kayfabe technical difficulty, or if Brody King actually like bumped the guardrail hard enough to like run into some equipment or something. Um, But afterwards, Darby gets up and he goes up top and waits for King, and he dives, and King catches him and then like crotches him on the top. And then Brody King hangs him in a tree of woe and proceeds to squash the life out of him with a cannonball from like while he's in the tree of woe position. And this just looked brutal for everybody involved because like it looked like King landed on his own head and Darby was just broken.
Yeah.
And then I want to say King tries to pick him up and put him up for a superplex, but at that point Darby's biting the hand that he had hurt by backhanding the ring post. And then Darby grabs a hold of King's head and is biting him. And he hits a beautiful avalanche code red on Brody King. And this is insane. Like, it was insane because it's Brody King, and this dude is humongous. And he just ate that entire avalanche code red on, like, high on his shoulders and neck. And then there was a I want to say Brody rolls out of the ring after he kicks out of that. And so you get like Darby's signature suicide dive where he just sort of turns his whole body into it like he's a dolphin trying to kill you. And, Brody is down or stunned. And so Darby climbs up and hits a coffin drop. And that puts Brody on the ground. And then he climbs up again and hits another coffin drop. And this time it's to a flat Brody King just laying on the ground outside the ring. And I mean, he coffin dropped him and it just looked sick. Like it looked sick, like for both men.
Yeah.
And Darby is the first one to kind of recover and get up. And he goes inside the ring and waits for Brody to roll in the ring. And he tries to do what they did the last time they met, which was a very similar situation. Was he had obliterated Brody King. I think at that point in time, it was on a set of ring steps, and waited for him to roll into the ring where he got coffin dropped again, and that cost Brody the match. But this time, Brody apparently has learned from their last encounter. And so when the coffin drop comes, King grabs hold of him and puts him in like that big rear naked choke that Brody's done to him. And he holds it. And it looks like Darby's going to try and fight out of it, but King's not having any of that. And he eventually brings him up from the floor to a standing position where he's hanging on to it. And it looks like Darby's just getting the life choked out of him. And when it looks like Darby's going to like get out of that one, he lets go of him and he hits him with like a near, like it was so quick how fast he did this to Darby. Like he lifts him up and hits him with the Gonzo bomb, which looks to me like just the nastiest pile driver, because the way he lifts him up, he gets him almost like he's going for almost like a crucifix powerbomb. He's got him up on the shoulder and he flips him down and goes immediately into a pile driver position. And at that point, Darby's dead, like for real. Like that's the end of this snuff film. And so you get the 1, 2, 3 from Brody King there, and then he, just kind of like looks at Darby like, "You crazy bastard," and then gets out of the ring. But he doesn't go very far because he notices that Claudio Castagnoli is approaching with a chair, presumably, I guess, to get some comeuppance for the end events of Full Gear. And so before Claudio can get into the ring, Brody King makes his way back into the ring to protect and guard Darby, and he's got his hand wrapped with a huge steel chain. And Claudio sees this, and he's like, maybe I don't want to get in the ring with this steel chair, and maybe this is a bad idea. And that is how Dynamite goes off the air, is with Claudio rethinking stepping into the ring with Brody King standing over Darby, protecting him with this giant chain in his hand.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, that was very cool. This one is difficult for me to review because it was a very mixed bag. There was some cool stuff, but there was some really, really bad stuff. And if I think back on it, I'm really not feeling this super confused situation with MJF Cole and now Kyle O'Reilly. Like that storyline is so screwed up.
Oh, you're talking about the whole show. Okay, I thought you were talking about the match.
The whole show. No. This match with Brody and Darby was excellent. This was one of the good spots. I'm saying the whole show was a mixed bag. But when I review what was good or when I think about what was good and I think about what was bad, some of the bad was real bad. The match between Jericho and Ishii is something that should never be on the television screen ever again.
No.
That match by itself is going to knock 2 neck nubs off of my final score. It was that bad. Yeah. I am that serious about how this should not be televised ever again. And then you add into it, there was only an okay kind of disappointing situation with Hayter and Aminata, and that was more like it could have been so much more and better. And then there was like the kind of lame duck promo with like Julia Hart didn't do anything. It just the lights flickered and there was a circle. It was like, okay.
Yeah.
That wasn't too great. So when you factor in all those things, I wanted this to be a top tier episode of Dynamite, but dropping 2 points off for Jericho and Ishii alone puts it right at an 8. And then the other bad things drop it almost down to a 7. Or no, not almost. It does drop it to a 7. So that does not qualify for top tier. It was okay.
Yeah.
And a mixed bag. That's what I got for it. 7 neck nubs, not top tier. What about your review?
Looking at the overall body of work for AEW's Dynamite, would put it somewhere around 7.5 for me. The one thing that was absolutely garbage was the match between Chris Jericho and Ishii. Like, honestly, I cannot come up with an excuse for it. It was bad. So bad that honestly, I got it was bad. All right, I could have gone to sleep on it. It was bad. Probably the worst match of 2024 was this. Aside from that, the angle that they're doing with Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole. What? It's what?
Exactly.
I don't, guys. I don't, and you guys don't either. All right, so stop, please. What? Huh?
Okay.
I don't know.
Pourquoi?
Nani? ¿Qué? ¿Cómo? ¿Por qué? ¿Qué? Yo no sé. I don't know. Stupid. It's dumb. And it's confusing, which makes it even more stupid and dumb for me. It just angers me because how stupid and dumb it is. So yeah. But those are the two things that really, really bothered me tonight, and it just kind of took away from an otherwise pretty decent show. Yeah, I think so I would give it about a 7.5, and that's not top tier. Top tier again starts for me at about 8.
Yeah.
And goes up, right? So this was not top tier. And also, just real quick about Jamie Hayter and oh my god,
Queen Aminata?
no.
Julia Hart.
Julia Hart, thank you. Just a quick little something about that. Why is Julia Hart going after Hayter? Again, Hayter has a long list of women that she can have matches with. Why is that happening when we have someone else that's just chilling in AEW, not joining up in any women's division matches or anything, but beating up on dudes, and no one has touched her? She is clearly a problem that needs answering. Why is that not happening from her? Why is she not doing it?
That's a great question, and I'm not sure how that's going to look, right? Because Hater's on a big push, right? So are you going to bring Julia Hart back after this long hiatus when she was the AEW like women's champion just to make her job to Hater? Or are you going to make Hater lose her momentum and lose?
And
I'm not sure where that goes.
Isn't the House of Black on a face turn right now? So
the guys are. I can't make that claim for Julia Hart. Like she's.
I mean, yeah.
Heartless.
I guess she's gonna do whatever the hell she wants. Yeah. No, you're right. And I want to know how they're gonna fucking play that with them being faces right now.
I'm not sure. We'll have to see how it reconciles. But I am a little surprised that Jamie Hayter's on our targeting list.
Yeah, Jamie Hayter ain't got no belt. Jamie Hayter's right. What about CEO?
Yeah.
Marina Shafir. I
Yeah.
mean, these are ladies that. What about Mariah May? I know she's got Mina right now, but I doubt that's going to be a long-standing feud. So, like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
Hater?
who can say? But I don't disagree with you in the slightest that like if and maybe they're turning that corner. I don't know because it felt I liked the role that the Death Riders played when they came out and they attacked Hangman and Jay White. Like both of the guys that
Yeah.
showed any interest in that title got obliterated.
Yep.
And I feel like that's something that the Bullet Club would do. That's something that the NWO would do. I feel like I've just said the same thing. But that's the right idea, right? And I in that same vein, if they're trying to gather the power which apparently resides in those belts, then why isn't Marina Shafir, who is apparently badass enough to be going against the guys, destroying the women for their little belts?
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that. I'd love to see that make that turn. So I fully agree there.
I'm just saying, if they hadn't have spent time burying Penelope, I think that was that girl's name, right? Penelope Ford or something.
Penelope Ford, yeah.
Yeah. If they hadn't spent time burying her or sacrificing her to Britt Baker, then we could have still had a really decent feud going on between Hayter, since you apparently clearly need something for Hayter to do, and you're gonna give her. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
for all that build up, a couple of Dynamite's worth of promos and it just resulted in a single match.
and then
I was
after
like,
that, a squash match between
and
Britt Baker.
with Britt Baker of all people, and that match looked like ass exclusively because Britt Baker is a trash wrestler in the ring.
Yeah. So what y'all like? You mad at Penelope or something? Like what? What the hell? She was a
Yeah.
comparable opponent for Hayter. I don't understand why Julia Hart needs to come into the picture for this. Julia Hart could have been doing other things.
Yeah. Here's how I would have booked that differently. It just came to me. I would have continued with the sort of humorous, like, here's Renee Paquette talking to Jamie Hayter, and
Mhm.
Julia Hart interrupts again. Maybe they just didn't have another cool promo package because they didn't have another cool promo thing to do tonight either. But if they needed Jamie Hayter to make her presence known, that would have been a better use. And instead of having her face Queen Aminata and it be kind of a nothing burger for both women, it would have been better to have a returning Penelope Ford who had just made her big comeback only to be kind of like momentum flatlined against Britt Baker to
Yeah.
come out there and have a match with Queen Aminata instead. They would have been more reasonably paired off against one another, I think. But that's how I would have done it differently somehow.
Yeah.
I think that would have been more productive and less of a waste of potential than it ended up being.
I agree. Yeah, good idea. So I mean, I don't know. All in all, like I said, 7.5 neck nubs. Uh, it was an okay episode. You know what? Actually, it was a good episode that was brought down to an okay episode by a couple of faulty matches, promos, and the like.
Yeah, I'll say it was an okay episode because I'm taking it on balance. The good parts were good. There was some okay, but the stuff that was bad was extremely bad. And
Yeah,
that really needs to be shored up. Like that
yeah,
a match between Chris Jericho and Ishii or Chris Jericho and Suzuki or any other like Japanese guy who's in here doing strong style, which is apparently the lamest shit I've ever seen in my life. And here's another major criticism I have. Like they both end up beat up, and for what, right? Like you didn't. It's like the worst of both worlds. Like in pro wrestling, you want moves that look devastating but don't actually destroy somebody. This did the
yeah,
opposite. These were all moves that looked stupid and were boring, and still leave the guys kind of beat up. It's the worst. It is the absolute worst. So
yeah,
that is enough of a freaking vortex, and it wasn't even the only bad thing to bring this down to only a mere okay at best. I'm sorry, that's how I feel about it.
yep. I hear you.
Well, this episode that concludes our coverage of AEW Dynamite for November 27th. And I want to thank all of our listeners who joined us for this episode. And I hope you will turn in for our next episode, which should be our coverage of Friday Night SmackDown. And until then, there isn't much left for me to do but wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. And roll the outro.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Top Tier Wrestling. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the latest AEW and WWE news and shows. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Follow us on social media for updates and to join the conversation. Until next time, everyone, remember, wrestling is always better when it's top tier.